Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ramani and welcome back to this ongoing series, sort of like series within a series, about the various narcissistic types. A lot of you asked for this, wanted clarity. It's my hope that these videos do enough of a deep dive that you feel like, now I get it and I can see that there are different kinds and this is what my boss is and this is what my mom is and this is what my partner is. And these are different, but yet none of them feel very good. So last time, we were in part 2 of malignant narcissism. Now, we're taking on the final part of malignant narcissism. Again, probably the darkest, most frightening of all these patterns. Something that looks almost closer to psychopathy, where you might feel a lot of menace, you might feel a lot of fear, you might feel like you have no idea how to get out. So, hang on to your hat. We're going to start talking about Malignant Narcissism Part 3. Please, as always, hit that subscribe button and join this channel. Hit that bell, get those notifications, and let's take on the final part of Malignant Narcissism. Now, we've been talking about this. Despite how damaging these relationships are, many people find it very difficult to leave them, and that makes sense. The primary reason these relationships can be so difficult to leave is fear. Fear of the malignant narcissist's vindictive behavior, or if it is a behavior characterized by violence or threats of violence, it may literally be dangerous. The psychological abuse, especially the manipulation and the exploitation, mean that many people in these relationships are very confused and may even blame themselves and believe the twisted accusations and gaslighting and lies of the malignant narcissist with whom they're in a relationship. But fear is really the key tool of manipulation, and it's what reigns large here. And that becomes one of the most difficult reasons for leaving one of these relationships. After years of making rationalizations, living in fear, walking on eggshells, it can be very easy to keep making those rationalizations. And this also becomes a way of avoiding the fear that leaving a relationship like this will raise for you. So, here's a question. How are you supposed to manage being in a relationship with a malignant narcissist? Now, I'd say for starters, don't get into this relationship in the first place. But from there, if you're already in it and you have to stay in it very carefully. Whether this is a partner, family member, or workplace situation, if you are in danger or are receiving threats that lead you to believe that you may be in some kind of danger, please contact law enforcement or appropriate local authorities. If the threats are of a legal nature, that they're threatening lawsuits and the like, please pursue legal guidance of some kind. This video is not a substitute for that kind of safety guidance or legal guidance. Now, if this is a partner and things are not at the level of danger where pursuing legal remedies are possible, for example, you're not going to be able to get a restraining order because the threats aren't articulated in that way that law enforcement is willing to hear them. As always, recognize, and I'm going to repeat myself here a lot, this pattern will not change, and that this person is using fear to keep you around. If it is a marriage, a divorce will be difficult, painful, and expensive. Seek out appropriate and extensive legal guidance with a divorce attorney who understands narcissism to get guidance on how to proceed. Ensure that you document everything because your attorney is going to need it. And if it is not a marriage or there are not custody issues afoot, then it comes down to recognizing that these patterns are not going to change. And armed with that knowledge that these patterns are not going to change, figure out a way to get out. When you decide to leave, though, you need to be prepared to endure rage, manipulation, cruelty, and even smear campaigns. You will need to be steadfast and just put your head down and focus on getting out. However, for some people, trying to get out is not possible. It's too scary. It's not financially possible. Many other reasons. If you do decide you have to, or you're going to stay in a relationship like this, recognize once again that the likelihood and the probability that these patterns will not change. And if there is a day that you think down the line that you may want to leave, and it's especially if it's a marriage situation, you need to start documenting now, even if you don't think you're going to leave for years. It's also important that if you do stay, that you start rallying support to the degree that is even possible. Friends, family members, and therapy. This kind of support will give you the reality checks you need, honestly, to stay sane. Many times, relationships with malignant narcissists mean isolation from other sources of support and information. Figure out a way to maintain support in your life. Now, if this is a workplace situation, document, document, document. It is literally the only tool you will have if things keep getting worse to protect yourself, especially if you need to get out of the situation. If you decide to pursue action with HR, human resources, or an attorney, you will need good documentation. And that includes emails, text messages, memos, voicemails with dates included. Be very careful about talking about things in too much depth with coworkers, because malignant narcissists are so skilled at triangulation and deceit in the workplace. So it can be challenging to know exactly whom you can trust. Ideally, you are able to find or seek out a trusted advisor or mentor from the outside of the organization. Perhaps that person could provide you with guidance or some kind of structure on how to proceed. Workplace situations with malignant narcissists take a tremendous mental health toll. So seek out therapy, because what therapy offers is a confidential sounding board. Don't use an employment-based therapy platform. Go to the outside and find someone on your own. In an ideal situation, you're able to leave the job, but that's not always possible for people. Or you may have the difficulty of working in an industry that holds the malignant narcissist in high regard and thinks that he or she hung the moon. So it may make it more difficult to make any kind of a move if the narcissist is poisoning the well, and they will poison the well. Again, documentation becomes key. In family relationships, you likely see that you are not the only one suffering because of the malignant narcissist. In some cases, malignant narcissists do not get better with time, but they lose their power. And what's interesting, especially when it's a malignant narcissistic parent, what might happen is their kids grow up, or other people in the family may start acquiring independent sources of money, start having their own lives and their own careers. And that honestly robs the malignant narcissist of a fair amount of his or her power. Now, it doesn't make them any less toxic. In fact, they may behave even more badly. Now they can't control through money or other things like that. But the potency of their action fades a bit unless you make the foolish error of continuing to count on that malignant narcissistic parent for money or any other kind of support. Now, the reason that malignant narcissists retain their power is because people are afraid of their reactions. And once you can sort of stop caring about their reactions, and I understand that they're terrifying, but once you can stop caring about them, and ideally to avoid personalizing their reactions, their malignant power also fades. Now, no contact works well with malignant narcissists. And while they'll recruit their flying monkeys and they'll start their smear campaigns, recognize that anyone who is willing to believe the malignant narcissist This is a wake-up call that this is someone that it's time to release them from your life. Setting boundaries with malignant narcissists can be a very frustrating endeavor because they will keep testing limits and using techniques like intimidation and fear to break you down. It becomes critical that you simply stand your ground and recognize that much like a playground bully, they do it in the name of their insecurity, which, like in all narcissism, is the core. It's all about their insecurity. Of all the forms of narcissism, this is definitely the form that can be the most unsettling, confusing, and traumatic. But ultimately, they are as insecure as any of the narcissistic personality styles. And most of the usual techniques, limits, boundaries, and always being aware of your own value can go a long way, but these relationships sap you of the ability to see your own value. So that often doesn't work. But to whatever degree you can use whatever bright light you get through knowledge to push back on the dark triad becomes essential. And this comes down, and I know I'm repetitive, but it matters here. This comes down to the classical techniques. Don't engage, have realistic expectations. None of this is going to get better. This is what you're dealing with. Radical acceptance. This is who they are. They're not going to change. Don't personalize what they're saying. It's about them. I'm not saying it's not going to hurt. I'm not saying those days are not going to unsettle you. But get it down to the point where they unsettle you for a few hours, and not because of something you did. It's about them. The radical acceptance becomes, this is what I'm stuck in. This is absolutely awful. But that's very different than, maybe I can do this and maybe I can do that. They're menacing, they're dangerous, and they're awful. You've got to get your head around that. Don't waste your time engaging with them, defending and explaining. Getting into the mud with them is just going to make you muddy and make them feel like they're superior again. Gray rocking, not engaging, having boundaries, and finding outlets for the exhaustion, the depletion, and the fear that these relationships create are important parts of a healing and coping plan from the narcissistic relationship. If you do manage to get out, therapy, and even therapy that's focused on trauma, because these relationships can be quite traumatic, become absolutely critical steps in healing from this type of narcissistic abuse at the hands of a malignant narcissist can often be the most toxic of all. I do hope that this 3-part series within a series has taught you about the menace, the danger, the challenges, and the impacts of malignant narcissism, as well as giving you some ideas, thoughts, and techniques about what to do if you stay, what to do if you go, and how to cope with it in the day-to-day and in the long term. Please stay tuned to this series because we're going to be taking on different kinds of narcissistic types, breaking it down in exactly the same way. And so until then, hope you're enjoying this, and if you are, please subscribe to this channel, hit that subscribe button, or hit the bell, and then hit the bell to get notifications on our ongoing content. Thanks again.